Hey everybody, my name is CJ, and it's been a very long while since I did a process video with voiceover. I wanted to talk about my process for a while, so here is my take on the 6 Fanarts challenge based on prompts from Twitter. Here we go. Alright, sketching. I like to use any dark color, usually red or blue, depending on either the character or mood I'm setting for the piece, or sometimes because it's my default. The brush is usually a default circle, but the texture is about 50 to 100% on dirt number 2, simply because I like the way it looks. This is probably the most puzzle-solving stage in my entire process, so that's why I chose to do it all in one go for this challenge, because that way, I don't lose the current solving mode my brain is in. Said puzzles to solve are Sam and Dean Winchester from Supernatural, there are birds, Deadpool, Francis Dolarhyde from Hannibal, and Morticia and Gomez Addams. With drawing semi-realistic portraits like these, where I use a reference, I like to use this technique where I look for certain landmark points on the face, i.e. the corners of the eyes, lips, etc., and use those to map out other features of the face. It took me a long while to get the hang of it, especially when the reference has tricky shadows and lights, but I highly recommend it over using grid methods, so you can train your eyes to map faces and things even better. It helps to remember that you don't have to draw every single line you see, because our brains naturally fill in the missing spaces anyway. Sketching can be as quick, simple, or messy as you want it to be, as long as you can get your idea across efficiently and you're open to changing it later on if need be. Afterwards, I put the sketch layer into a lower opacity and create a new layer for the line art. I like to gauge some brush settings depending on what I'm drawing, but the brush is usually smaller than the sketching brush and set to the color black and 50% on dirt 2 texture. Again, because I like it that way. This stage is probably the most meditative for me because this is where my brain is essentially just following the sketch lines while simplifying them on automatic. Naturally, there are a lot of things from the sketching stage that ends up being changed just in this lining stage, like the idea I had for yellow and white box to be used on Deadpool square, or resizing Morticia and Gomez's portraits. Of course, you may leave the line art black at this stage, but I didn't want to go for that comic book feel, so I'll be coloring on the line art later. I proceeded to do a single white base layer for all of the portraits and started coloring Sam. I didn't want to complicate the coloring style too much, so I settled for trying to find the sweet spot between using flat colors only to blending them. I also avoided using the color picker as well, because why not, and relied on the color sliders instead. I thought Sam's colors were slightly on the yellowish side, so I did my best to stay on that path, but I think the leaves behind him may have tricked me there. I also used a simple shade of purple and red for shadows and blushes, set on multiply, and another layer on luminosity for the rim lights and highlights. Changing the lips was a last-minute decision. Dean, on the other hand, I thought was more on the reddish side, so I tried staying on the red hues for his skin and hair. From there, it was a simple repeat process of what I did with Sam, and simply reusing the same shade of purple and red for shadows and blushes. If anything, I was pretty proud of myself for figuring out that Dean's colors seemed to be more on the reddish side, and was pretty pleased with how simpler his coloring process was compared to Sam. Overall, I think I improved a lot compared to the last time I drew him all those years ago. Deadpool was far simpler. I've had more recent experience drawing him around the release of the first Deadpool movie, and I felt that I had more interpretative freedom with him since he was still a comic book character. I gave myself several pats on the back for the whole coming out of the box pose, of course. It was a proud moment, but forgetting to adjust the overview box in the lower right window, that was my bad. Francis was probably the most challenging one because I knew that the series Hannibal was basically tinted green and very, very dark. I adjusted the brightness and contrast of my reference photo just so I can have a slightly better look at the colors I could see, and it was a doozy. In the end, I thought it was fit to truly blend out the shading in his portrait to see the most out of Richard Armitage's expression. Whether or not the resemblance is there is up to you. Lastly were Morticia and Gomez Addams. I've loved the Addams Family since I was a kid, but the 1964 sitcom was a more recent find and it charmed the hell out of me. Naturally, since I only had to do them in grayscale, for both of them, I decided to do all their coloring and blending on one layer, except for the reds and purples, though I only used them for saturation reference. Morticia was fairly easier to color with the clothes and some skin areas, but I do regret not putting more volume in her hair. Gomez, on the other hand, was only slightly harder. It helped that I wanted his hair to just be one dark abyss, but the actor's facial structure was a doozy as well to figure out. All in all, I really liked how they turned out. And that is it for my take on the 6 Fanarts challenge. Woohoo! Thank you so much for the people who suggested all of these characters on Twitter. I wouldn't have found a way to go through my art block without you, and of course without this challenge. Huge thanks as usual for my patrons on Patreon, for Betsy Craig, Colleen Donaldson, and Tyler. Your support for my art and everything I love means the world to me. I'm currently recording this on my birthday, and I wanted to finish this video because sooner or later, the quarantine will be lifted in my town, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be noisier and I wouldn't be able to finish this at all. Thanks again so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you want, no pressure. I hope you're safe in this time. Please take care, wash your hands, and bye-bye.